Watching today's winners and losers on Wall Street with our financial expert Rob Black, and we had Apple shares opening up above $100 a share for the first time. So since that split a couple months ago, so we're at an all-time high here for Apple.
Yeah, split adjusted all-time high. I know there's a lot of people who are stoked about that, including myself, as I do own shares. There's a lot of things going on. Let me give you a couple of them. Their R&D is starting to spike. Last time their R&D spiked, they came out with the iPhone. The time before that, it was the iPod. Once it was the iPad. So something big's getting ready to happen. They've hired a lot of people. Former CEO of Burberry, a guy from Xbox, a super high-end designer. They've hired some technology officers from Adobe and the ex-CEO of Yves Saint Laurent. So they've got a management team that's pretty hot right now. Dr. Dre, Jimmy Iovine, Ian Rogers. They're bringing in Beats to try to compete with Spotify. Their app purchases are going higher. Lots of positives going on. But again, it's all going to come down to the iPhone 6.
Am I wrong here? I always seem to think that there's a big run-up before the announcement in the stock. Then the announcement of a new product comes and the stock tends to dip, and then there's a nice buying opportunity there for Apple.
In the last 5 phones, the second iteration of the iPhone and the 5th, the stock fell after it came out. The other 3, it roared higher. So it's tough to say which ones it's going to do.
Okay. And then watching the NASDAQ, which Apple is a part of, that hitting a 14-year high. We're back to the 2000s and the early 2000s. And the dot-com bust and boom. But this is a different tale, isn't it? Kind of. We hope so.
You know, it's nice. As an index, it reflects growthier type of companies. Companies like Starbucks are on the index, but it's largely made up of Cisco, Intel, Microsoft, Yahoo. Companies like Apple. Apple's success does well for the NASDAQ because it's on that index as well as the S&P 500. A lot of stock buybacks have helped, but yeah, there's been a flight to quality and there's been a flight to U.S. companies. So as people are saying, this whole Russia-Ukraine thing, I'm going to go with good old boring tech companies like a Microsoft. They make billions of dollars, and that's all people are caring about. So it's nice to see.
Yeah, it's funny. The companies you mentioned, they're all big dividend payers now. So in a way, is the idea of the NASDAQ changing from the kind of companies it holds?
Yeah, 10 years ago, Cisco paying a dividend was a laughable thought, but now they're yielding almost 3%. So you do get some money for parking your cash inside the shares. It's not quite as hefty as some of the other dividend players out there like AT&T and Verizon, non-traditional tech, or some of the other real estate investment trust plays. But it's nice. It's for sure a reason to own some stocks.
I'm watching mortgage rates. They're down again, but it's pretty tight to qualify, isn't it?
Yeah, the refi market's taken off. The new home purchase on mortgages not doing so well. So it's the refi, and who do you have to thank for that? Putin. Vladimir Putin goes after Ukraine, and people are like, I got to hide my money somewhere safe, and they hide it in American bonds. And the American bonds in the Treasury market are what help forecast what's going to be happening with the mortgage market. So you've seen a big drop in the 15-year mortgages and 30-year mortgages. I think right now the 30-year mortgage, the average one goes for about 4.29%. And that's stunning. That's a really, really solid number. 10 years ago, we would never have dreamt of this, but with the Federal Reserve, Alan Greenspan, and Janet Yellen lowering interest rates and quantitative easing and calamity in Europe, it's allowed you and me to get a mortgage that's pretty attractive. And I'll tell you what, America's well positioned for the next 30 years because we have refinanced and we have gotten mortgages at low rates. So we'll have a little extra money in our pockets for the next 30 years, in theory.
All right, that's a good theory. And we have a question here from Ellen. Ellen asking Rob, how can I find good stocks?
You can do it one of 2 ways. You can take a look at stocks that were around when you were a little girl. Companies like GE, companies like Microsoft, if you want to go that kind of direction. Maybe Nike, Disney, companies that were around when you were a little girl. Or you can get like a stock screener if you have a brokerage account at Ameritrade or Schwab or Fidelity. Start looking for companies that are growing their earnings 10%. Start there. Most individuals should own index funds or exchange traded funds, which are broadly diversified, and then add 1 stock per year for 10 years. And then you'll have 10 stocks. I own Nike. I don't even have to think about Nike. I own Disney. Don't even have to think about Disney. If they mess up a quarter, 2 quarters, 3 quarters, a year, 2 years, they'll bounce back.
All right, good advice. Thank you, Rob. And if you have a question for Rob, post it on his Facebook fan page, and we'll answer it here on KRON 4. We'll be right back.